Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really massive shift in modern political history. We're looking at a huge question. What actually happens when two of the world's absolute largest democracies decide to turn their focus totally inward? To really wrap our heads around this era of modern leadership, we have to start right there. What exactly occurs when leaders of major global democracies heavily prioritize their own domestic arenas and national interests over a more globally integrated approach? Over the last decade or so, we've seen this really noticeable shift where focusing inward became the dominant political platform. And it doesn't just change how these nations deal with the rest of the world. No, it completely rewires their own economies and their own societies from the inside out. You can see this stark parallel brilliantly illustrated in two defining doctrines: America First in the United States and Make in India, halfway across the globe. Now, obviously, these are completely different geopolitical contexts and cultures, right? But both Donald Trump and Narendra Modi rose to power using a really strong nationalist message. They both drove sweeping reforms aimed at self-reliance and boosting their own internal growth. Okay, let's dive into this by examining the administration of Donald Trump, who served, as we know, as the 45th President of the United States. His time in office completely reshaped the national conversation around the economy, immigration, and trade. His core approach was entirely driven by the America First policy. The strategy here was basically to pull the global focus back home. It meant fundamentally filtering every major decision, whether we're talking about trade negotiations or foreign policy, through one very specific lens, giving the absolute highest priority to the U.S. domestic economy, American employment, and national interests. And the U.S. economy saw significant changes during this time. According to various economic reports, a key outcome right up until the COVID-19 pandemic hit was a massive drop in the unemployment rate. So many people found new jobs. For supporters of his administration, these surging pre-pandemic employment figures were basically the ultimate proof that this inward domestic focus was really working. So how did they do it? The crucial point is that he focused heavily on the development of domestic industry and business. They heavily encouraged companies to increase their production and boost investment right within America's borders. And this direct push is what led to tangible job growth in some very specific industrial sectors, reinforcing that America First mandate on a super practical level. Now, what's really interesting here is the major policy of tax cuts. This was a huge administration initiative. The logic, which his supporters strongly champion, was that by lowering the tax burden, businesses became way more interested in investing. They'd naturally pour that extra capital back into their own growth, which supporters claim significantly increased overall economic dynamism. It was a primary lever pulled by the administration. Additionally, this inward focus absolutely didn't stop at the economy. Strengthening border security was another hugely important step for his administration. This involved implementing really strict measures and controls on illegal immigration, which was viewed as a vital shield to protect domestic resources and safeguard those employment opportunities. All right, let's shift gears and see how this very same nationalist philosophy builds in India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has been serving as the current Prime Minister since 2014. Much like the US, Modi's ongoing tenure has been defined by a sweeping agenda to fortify the nation from within. Supporters believe that under his leadership, several major transformative changes have been brought to India's economy, its infrastructure, and its technology sectors. Modi's approach to these reforms has been incredibly structured and multi-pronged. We're talking about several major initiatives that targeted completely different aspects of India's development all at once, from boosting manufacturing to expanding digital infrastructure and even focusing on basic health awareness. Specifically, the absolute cornerstone of all this was the Make in India initiative. The main goal here was to aggressively boost domestic production, but with a strategic twist, actively pulling in foreign investment to build up India's own industrial capacity. Supporters are quick to highlight that these efforts created robust, real-world opportunities for industrial development and generated much-needed employment across a ton of different sectors. Furthermore, the administration really pushed the idea that modern infrastructure is digital and financial. Through the Digital India project, a massive emphasis was placed on bringing government services online, expanding internet access, and basically building a technology-driven administration. And running right alongside that was the Jan Dhan Yojana. This was a massive deal. Millions of people suddenly gained access to banking services, dramatically increasing financial inclusion across the country. Government reports also indicate some really significant investment in physical infrastructure, We're talking huge road, rail, and urban development projects. But perhaps the most visible change was the Swachh Bharat mission, or the Clean India mission. This actually emerged as a massive social movement aimed at increasing cleanliness and fundamental health awareness everywhere. However, we have to look at this impartially. Modern democratic leadership is incredibly complex, and not everything can be viewed from just one side. Both leaders' policies and decisions are widely debated. Some people see them as the ultimate symbols of strong, decisive nationalist leadership who put their countries first, while others strongly criticize the real-world impact and the methodology of certain policies and decisions. It's just a reality of holding the highest office. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on. Both of these leaders have authored undeniably notable, heavily debated chapters in modern political history. But given the stark polarization and the widespread debate, how will the long-term impacts of these intensely debated nationalist tenures truly be judged by history? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer today. Keep questioning and keep learning.